Hello and welcome to episode 421 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, joined by two young gentlemen you know and love, Evan Silva and Michael Leone. Evan, how's it going?
It's going great. Talking wideouts today.
Leone, your favorite position, wide receivers, how's it going?
They should make all wide receiver leagues, quite frankly.
On today's show, we're going to talk all things wide receiver, what our strategy should be, who we are targeting, sleepers, busts, etc. By the way, if you have a draft coming up, you need to have the EstablishTheRun.com draft kit Pro, $49.99, base draft kit, $34.99. Head to the site, subscribe page to check out everything with the details there. Also, before we get into it today, this podcast is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Best ball, $2 million to first, $1 million to second, $25 buy-in. Absolutely outrageous tournament going on right now. If you use promo code ETR when you sign up, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Again, promo code ETR at Underdog Fantasy. All right. By the way, we are referring to standard home league setups here, not best ball, not tight end premium, not big tournaments, just straightforward 12 team against your boys, half PPR, wide receiver. So I'm fine starting round one with wide receiver. The wide receiver setups in home leagues start to scare me because there's so many guys in rounds 3 through 7 that I want to take at wide receiver. And obviously in a lot of these setups, I can only start 3 or 4. So Leone, from a macro perspective, how are you thinking about wide receiver in standard home league, half PPR, 12 teamers?
If you listen to our running back episode, the big thing is the running back position rounds 3 through 7 starts to get a little bit dicey. Whereas wide receiver, we can generally get a ton of value in this range, guys that have really high ceilings, nice breakout profiles, and are relatively safe. It's an awesome combination. So really my plan is to just pound that position rounds, 3 through 7, maybe even 8, depending on how you start. And it might change. If I'm at the very top of the draft and I miss out on CMC or possibly Jonathan Taylor, I'm jumping in on Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I think those 3 guys are such difference makers that you might sacrifice, wanting to have a safer running back build in order to build around those guys. But after that, I think it's okay for you to wait until round 3 in your generic half PPR league, especially if it's only 2 wide receiver spots and not 3.
Yeah, I mean, my take was that even if you start with Diggs or Devante Adams or whatever wide receiver you like in round 1, there's a lot of round 2 running backs that I like. I mean, Saquon, Najee, Mixon, Kamara. I mean, you can start wide receiver and then running back and build your team around that running back. So I'm perfectly fine starting wide receiver in round 1. I would want it to be a spot where I thought I was confident I could get one of the running backs that I like in round 2, though. Evan, how are you thinking about wide receiver generally this season?
Yeah, and I talked about it in the running back episode. And what I really try to do is piece together like a top 25, top 30 that I'm very comfortable and confident in. And I've, tested it out in best ball drafts or, different formats. And I enter the draft and I kind of just abide by my top 25 and top 30 and kind of just let the draft board come to me. In a 12-team home league, half PPR, like I am not forcing wide receivers early. I think it makes more sense to force running backs early, actually, in that format. But ultimately, I'm not trying to force anything. I'm just I go in with my rankings, I execute, and I let the rest of the draft I let those early picks that I make dictate how I'm going to draft the rest of the way.
There's a group of guys that I end up taking so much in the middle rounds, and it's Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Courtland Sutton, Chris Godwin, Gabe Davis, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, those are the guys that I end up with so much of in those middle rounds. I think
rounds 3 through 5. That's not really the middle rounds, right?
Yeah, okay, rounds 3 through 5. But I do think that there's certain guys like
7.
Gabe Davis is not going to go nearly as high in your home league as he does in some of these other tougher spots. Amon-Ra, Juju, people aren't into those guys. DJ Moore, they're going to slip more than I think people realize.
So rounds 3 through 7, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just to add, Jerry Jeudy, the Denver guys, Sutton, those guys might be more round 5 guys instead of round 3 guys in those types of leagues. And it pushes all the wide receivers down. So even beyond those guys that we love, if you want to take chances on the rookies like Drake London and Treylon Burks and whatnot, that might be rounds 9 and 11 or rounds 8 and 10. So there's a lot of ability. We like Kadarius Toney. I'd throw in that mix too. There's just so much ability to draft the types of wide receivers we want to be in on that it makes it eases the burden where you can just tiebreaker running back the first 2 rounds, get your anchor running back, possibly RB, and you can still beat people at wide receiver.
Yeah, I do like Drake London and guys like that. He plays for the Falcons and he's a rookie. He's just not going to go high in a home league. Period. It's just not going to happen. I do like the Drake London call there. Guys that I'm not taking a wide receiver in that range. I'll throw you guys too, maybe you guys have some more who you tend to avoid. I don't take any Deebo Samuel where he goes. I mean, just the most outrageous efficiency, unsustainable efficiency last season from Deebo, both in terms of touchdowns and the way he was used. One of the shortest average depths of target in the league, and meanwhile led the entire league in yards per catch. Like, it just doesn't make any sense what Deebo did last year, and I don't think that with Trey Lance coming in, he'll be able to sustain anything near that. And also the one that I don't take that much is Deionte Johnson. I do think Deionte Johnson can play. This has nothing to do with the drops. I know Deionte Johnson is amazing at getting open. It's just a lot of fragility there when you remove his boy, Ben Roethlisberger, who was so locked on, and you bring in all these question marks at quarterback. We don't know if they'll have the same love affair. George Pickens is obviously getting a ton of hype. And so Deebo and Deionte are two that I don't really end up at all. Evan, I don't know if you have any wide receivers that you go out of your way to not take. I guess Devante Adams is one that you've been vocal about that you don't really take where he goes.
Don't start, Leone. Not today, all right? Not after what you did last night. Not after that shit you pulled last night, all right? No, I agree with the two receivers that you mentioned. Devante Adams is just a few too many negative data points for me to take him really anywhere close to his ADP because he's about to turn 30. He just got paid. He's definitely downgrading quarterbacks, and he's seeing a lot more target competition. The part of fading him that scares me a little bit, because, I mean, I still think he's going to have a really good year. Like, I have him as the 17th overall player. I just don't have him as like the number 8 overall player, which is where he always goes, is that I think that there's just so much shootout potential in that AFC West with Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Derek Carr and Justin Herbert. I mean, that's an absolute murderer's row of quarterbacks. And he's amazing. He is very, very good. But I also think that his game was elevated to an extent by Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a teammate elevator. Everybody remembers the year of James Jones, but I don't know that Derek Carr is a teammate elevator. So, I mean, there is something here, Leone. I know you don't watch a lot of football, but there is something to, the ability of the quarterback and the chemistry that the quarterback and the wide receiver showcase. I mean, you could go find any quarterback and ask him, is there a guy that you trust? Oh, I can always trust that guy to go, put his hands where they need to be. Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff does matter. We got some shower narrative going on here. Yeah. And there's going to be a level of chemistry, I think. I mean, Derek Carr and Devante Adams played together in college, and I think that there will be but that chemistry that they showed in Green Bay between Aaron Rodgers and Devante Adams was something special. Yeah. And he never, I mean, the guys that are left behind, Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, we're talking up Robert Tonyan to an extent, I mean, just trying to make guys work in Green Bay. That was his target competition in Green Bay. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into a Devante Adams debate here, Leone, but is there any other players that you're not on at their ADP?
In home leagues, I think, you mentioned Deionte Johnson. I think there's a cluster of him, Michael Pittman, and Terry McLaurin. I know you guys like Pittman, but to me, I think those guys are just like okay, and they get really pushed up in home leagues where I think I'd rather have, DJ Moore. I'd rather have Jalen Waddle. I'd probably rather have like the Denver guys or the Chargers guys. So I've been unintentionally avoiding them because I think they're all fine. It just seems like there's always a different wide receiver that I have ranked ahead of those guys. And I haven't mentioned Green Bay, like they leave behind dust. And as a result, a lot of people are pushing up Allen Lazard up the boards. I'm not confident I'm right on this one because if he steps in and we just have seen the wide receiver one spot have so much potential for Green Bay, but I think people are overconfident that Allen Lazard is going to be that guy or has the ability to be that guy.
Yeah, for sure. And Lazard kind of goes in that kind of, I don't know, it depends what league you're in. I've seen him go all over the place, but like I end up not taking wide receiver as much in a lot of my builds because I take so much wide receiver in rounds 3 through 6 or 3 through 7. I don't take a lot of wide receiver in kind of 8, 9, 10, but I do think there are options beyond round 10 that I take a lot. Guys that I would consider, I guess, sleepers in home leagues at least that I like: Wendell Robinson, Jahan Dotson, Isaiah McKenzie, DJ Chark, Sky Moore, Nico Collins. I mean, we're starting to get thinner here, I think, at the wide receiver position. But
Sami Watkins.
I'll give you your chance here, Evan. But I think that the wide receiver position where you can get like game-to-game volatility. In other words, like if you have to start these guys in a pinch, they're going to give yourself some upside with them. I'll cede the floor now to Evan to shill for Sami Watkins, who has failed with Patrick Mahomes in his career, but now
the capitulation is going to be sweet and it's going to be juicy. After that, Sami Watkins 3 touchdown week 1, and then we don't hear from him the rest of the year. No, I mean, Sami Watkins, it's interesting because, look, I don't know if he can stay healthy. He already had a hamstring injury in training camp. He wasn't practicing the first few days. He's been out there, though. He's running as a locked-in starter, and the beat writers are talking about how he has the trust of Aaron Rodgers. He's only 28, 29. I mean, he won the 18th round last night of our FFPC main event draft. I don't know. I mean, Leone, when are you gonna come around on Sami Watkins, the ultimate late round sleeper?
It's the rest of the team you got to talk to. It's not me. You're talking to the wrong guy here. I mean, I was ridiculed months ago in the ETR Slack channel for being pro Sami Watkins. So no, I think Watkins is fine. I think with Watkins too, like it's just such an enormous difference in price tag between him and Lazard. And like, I don't know if the probabilities that Lazard is the guy and Watkins is like that disparate.
Right.
I like Romeo Dobbs like the most, honestly, at price adjusted, just because there's the most uncertainty with him. Like, what if he's really good, and we have this opportunity, whereas the other guys, we could see them being kind of capped. And Adam mentioned so many rookies late. And in general, if you have drafted wide receiver heavy early in rounds 3 through 8, and you've got 5-6 guys, generally what you're looking for at your bench isn't someone who's safe, going to get you 12 points a game. You don't care too much about 10 to 12 points a game. What you care about is guys that could potentially break out, because you can replace on the waiver wire. Like Corey Davis is a guy I take all the time at best ball, because I think the way you build in best ball matters a lot. In managed leagues, I guess he's fine if you're wide receiver light early, and starting him may be pretty important. But if you're wide receiver heavy early, I'd much rather take a chance on Wan'Dale Robinson or one of the rookies, George Pickens, and hope for I get a huge breakout season and they become an obvious start for me.
Yeah. And to your point about wide receivers early, like even though I said, I like to have running backs at the very, very top, I still want to have at least 3 to 4 wide receivers on my team through the first 7 rounds. And I think that's easy to do, especially in home leagues with some of the guys that we mentioned there in that mid range. All right. We said it all on wide receivers. We'll be back to wrap up this series with tight end in the next episode. For Leone, for Silva, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.